4/5 of all the people in the world today have spent their lifetimes under the shadow of nuclear confrontation. The winter and spring of 1972 gave rise to new hopes for a world no longer shadowed by fear and want and war. February 21st. The President of the United States arrives at Capitol Airport near Peking, the People's Republic of China. This is the first in a series of state visits that will take the American president across the continents of Europe and Asia. President Richard Nixon is greeted by Premier Zhou Enlai. During the next 8 days, the two nations will begin the process of slowly bridging diplomatic barriers. For 20 years, the span of a new generation, China has been closed to much of the world. Now, Mr. Nixon embarks on the first visit of an American president to the People's Republic. The motorcade enters Peking, capital to 732 million people, seat of the oldest continuing civilization on Earth. After the president's arrival, there is a meeting with Chairman Mao Zedong. It is a major step in opening a dialogue between the two countries. On the first night, a banquet is held in the president's honor at the Great Hall of the People.
The American people are a great people. The Chinese people are a great people. Now, through the common efforts of China and the United States, the gate to friendly contact has finally been opened.
There is no reason for us to be enemies. Neither of us seeks the territory of the other. Neither of us seeks domination over the other. Neither of us seeks to stretch out our hands and rule the world.
In Peking, Premier Zhou and Mr. Nixon meet often. Talks cover cultural and economic exchanges, peace in Asia, and the security and independence of all nations. While the discussions continue, Mrs. Nixon acts as a roving ambassador throughout the city. At the Evergreen People's Commune just outside the city, Mrs. Nixon observes second and third grade students. Premier Zhou accompanies the president to almost all events. including an athletic meet of ping pong, badminton, and gymnastics. The entire audience is caught up in the spirit of the evening. Through satellite television and newspaper coverage, the sights of China are brought to people across the globe. A tour of the Forbidden City reveals the wealth and splendor of ancient dynastic emperors. The Great Wall, built by hand in the 2nd century BC, stretches 1,600 miles across northern China. Originally, it sealed off this territory from invaders. President Nixon expresses the hope that one day people will be free of barriers and that no walls, physical or ideological, will divide them. On the 6th day, with the formal meetings behind them, Premier Zhou and the American visitors make a short trip to the southern city of Hangzhou. In a relaxed mood, the leaders stroll through ancient Flower Fort Park. From Hangzhou, the party flies on to Shanghai, China's largest city and a center of industry and culture. At an industrial exhibition, Mr. Nixon views tangible evidence of China's rapid technical growth. During the farewell banquet in Shanghai, President Nixon responds to a toast of friendship.
Our two peoples tonight hold the future of the world in our hands. And as we think of that future, we are dedicated to the principle that we can build a new world, a world of peace, a world of justice, a world of independence for all nations.
In a joint communique, the two countries reaffirm their desire to broaden contacts and normalize relations. Both sides have agreed on rules of conduct designed to reduce the risks of war in Asia and the Pacific. They have agreed to settle disputes without the threat or use of force. Both are opposed to domination of the Pacific area by any one power and to secret negotiations concerning the fate of other nations. Though differences and problems remain, the United States and China have taken an historic step together toward strengthening world peace. In May, less than 3 months after the trip to China, President and Mrs. Nixon fly to Austria. They are greeted by Chancellor Kreisky and the citizens of Salzburg. Austria, in the heartland of Central Europe, has maintained its political neutrality since World War II, a constructive neutrality that has contributed to the easing of East-West tensions. The President's visit here begins a four-nation round of high-level discussions. At Schloss Klesheim Palace, Mr. Nixon and Dr. Henry Kissinger consult with Chancellor Kreisky on European problems and the role of smaller nations in an era of great power diplomacy. A luncheon is given in the President's honor before his departure. After a brief and informal stay, the President expresses his appreciation for the opportunity to learn Austria's thinking on the problems of Europe and the world. Moscow. A summit conference between the United States and the Soviet Union has been in preparation for many long months. President Nixon is met by President Podgorny, Premier Kosygin, and Foreign Minister Gromyko. This is the prelude to 8 days of hard-working meetings and negotiations. Sessions will take place in the halls and palaces of the Kremlin, 15th century walled citadel of the Tsars. Catherine Hall is the site of the first full meeting of the Soviet and American delegations. At the Inn Tourist Hotel, several hundred members of the international press have gathered to report on the progress of the talks. As they go about their daily lives, the citizens of Moscow and the world await news of the meetings. 5 major agreements are signed in the first 4 days. An environmental protection agreement to curb air and water pollution and help protect the Earth's resources on an international scale. An agreement on medical science and public health to develop programs and exchange information on widespread health problems, in particular cancer and heart disease. Agreement for cooperation in space to resolve problems of international law in the exploration of outer space and develop a joint U.S.-Soviet manned spaceflight in 1975. In science and technology, the two nations will work together on a broad range of problems that affect mankind. An agreement on the prevention of incidents at sea to improve communication between ships and reduce the danger of collisions. A trade commission is also formed to promote commercial relations between the countries. Through the days, Mrs. Nixon represents her country to the people of Moscow. Mrs. Nixon visits the world-famous Moscow Circus. Mrs. Nixon is taken on a tour of Moscow State University, the tallest structure in the city. There are 34,000 students at the university from 105 countries. The First Lady, Mrs. Brezhnev, and Mrs. Gromyko are honored guests at the Bolshoi Theater School, where they observe young dancers at work. Training begins early here, at about the age of 7. That evening, the President and Mrs. Nixon, Mrs. Brezhnev, and Soviet leaders attend the Bolshoi Ballet for a special performance of Swan Lake. On May 26th, the American and Soviet delegations gather at St. Vladimir Hall. After 30 months of intense negotiations, a strategic arms limitation treaty and supplemental agreement are signed. President Nixon signs for the United States, General Secretary Brezhnev signs for the USSR. The agreements are a major breakthrough in scaling down the arms race. The limits imposed on nuclear arsenals represent an important step toward international stability and confidence among nations. A brief trip by air to Leningrad. Wreaths are laid in memory of the thousands who died during the siege of Leningrad. From the pages of her diary, President Nixon learns about 12-year-old Tanya, the death of each member of her family until only Tanya is left. He signs the guest book in memory of Tanya and the heroes of Leningrad. On his return to Moscow, President Nixon is given an opportunity to speak to the Soviet people on television.
Dobry večer. As we look at the prospects for peace, we see that we have made significant progress at reducing the possible sources of direct conflict between us. But history tells us that great nations have often been dragged into war without intending it by conflicts between smaller nations. As great powers, we can and should use our influence to prevent this from happening. Our goal should be to discourage aggression in other parts of the world, and particularly among those smaller nations that look to us for leadership and example. With great power goes great responsibility.
The two leaders conclude the summit meeting by signing a declaration of principles that commits the United States and the Soviet Union to seek peaceful solutions to their disputes. It affirms their pledge to avoid nuclear confrontation and to exercise restraint in all mutual relations. From the Soviet Union, the President flies to Iran for a state visit with Shah Reza Pahlavi. Together, they enter the capital city of Tehran. Mr. Nixon first visited Iran 19 years ago. Now he returns as leader of the American people. During afternoon sessions, the President and Shah discuss peaceful resolution of the Middle East situation and the security and economic growth of the Persian Gulf. That evening, the Shah and Empress Farah preside at a state dinner held in the Americans' honor. Mr. Nixon pays his respect at the tomb of the Shah's father, the founder of modern-day Iran. Iran recently celebrated the 2,500th anniversary of its monarchy. Under the Shah's administration, land redistribution, literacy programs, and industrial development have made the country a leader among the Persian Gulf states. At the Sadabad Palace, President and Mrs. Nixon host a luncheon for the Shah, Empress Farah, and Iranian dignitaries. The United States and Iran have had cordial relations for many years. This visit confirms their strong ties and mutual respect. Poland is the final stop on the President's journey. Chairman Jablonski and Premier Jaroszewicz head the official welcoming ceremonies. This is the first visit of an American president to Poland.
But I can assure you that the major purpose of my visit here and to the other countries that I have visited over the years that I have served in my present office is to build a new structure of peace in the world. Poland has suffered too much from war, and Poland, along with other peoples in the world, want peace, and that is our goal, to achieve a world of peace for all nations.
The determined people of Warsaw have almost completely rebuilt their city after the destruction of World War II. At Victory Square, thousands of Varsovians give the President and Mrs. Nixon an enthusiastic welcome with cries of Stolat and Yek Żyje. The President meets with Edward Gierek, first Secretary of the Polish United Workers' Party. In 2 sessions, the leaders agree to expand the cultural and economic programs between their countries. Mr. Nixon calls for steps to reduce the division of Europe and open up avenues of contact between the peoples of the continent. On the last day of the visit, Mrs. Nixon and Warsaw residents attend a concert of Chopin mazurkas at Leżenki Park. Like the other stops on their journey, this visit has ended in a spirit of understanding and improved relations. The summits of '72 have not rendered an imperfect world suddenly perfect, but they have begun to free us from perpetual confrontation.
Let our goal now be a world free of fear, a world in which nation will no longer prey upon nation, in which human energies will be turned away from production for war and toward more production for peace, away from conquest and toward invention, development, creation, a world in which together we can establish that peace which is more than the absence of war, which enables man to pursue those higher goals that the spirit yearns for.